Good morning, Sin City, and welcome to another episode of Social Media Show. I'm your host, Sam Dever, alongside co-host Aisha Jade.
Good morning, folks.
Good morning. We have a very special guest coming from Los Angeles, California, Mark Tullius. Mark, welcome.
Thanks, Sam. I appreciate you guys having me.
No, definitely. And we got a lot to talk about with you, but for those that don't know, in a nutshell, what do you do?
To sum it up, I'm an author, former fighter, and most importantly, I'm a stay-at-home dad. And I love that part of my job, but it does make it difficult because I'm trying to travel the country for my MMA project.
Right.
And so that makes it hard.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll get right into it. And you're actually writing a book right now called Unlocking the Cage.
Yeah, when I was fighting, I wasn't a good fighter. I'll put that out there right at the start. You know, I was good in the gym, couldn't make the transition to the cage, but everyone used to ask me like why I was doing it. I went to an Ivy League school. I never fought in my life, and I fell into the sport. We were going to chop shops, making maybe $100, $200 to fight guys. You would just show up, they would match you up, and you would just do it. And everyone would ask, like, why are you doing this? And I could never really answer that question. And at the time, I thought of doing a sociological study. I thought it'd be interesting to see, okay, why are we doing this? What do we have in common? And I just never did. I turned away from the sport after my final concussion in 2004. And then my daughter started wanting to train. She was 4 at the time. I was like, wait, is she going to do what I did? And made me start questioning it again. So I decided just to go for it. And so I'm going around the country. I've been to 70 gyms in the last year, almost interviewed 300 fighters, and, men and women, amateurs, pros. I'm looking at, I figured I had to go everywhere and talk to everyone in order to find out like who fighters really are. It's like, I'm not just looking at the elites and the guys that have made it. I want to know, okay, why is the amateur who's 1-4, why is he still fighting? Why did he do it? Right. And it's just awesome though. I love talking to people, and I think more than anything, it's not that they're fighters, but just that they're people. And so I'm like, okay, what was childhood like? And being able to see where someone comes from, and it's like, okay, well, what happened to you? Why this route? And but yeah, it's been awesome. I love it. I get inspired every time I talk with someone.
So when you go around the country and you're interviewing these fighters, is this a part of your documentary?
Yeah. So at first, that wasn't the intention. It was just strictly going to be the book and the sociological study. And I was filming the interviews so I wouldn't forget, because I knew it was going to be a lot of people.
Right.
And within the first week, I was like, you know what? I was like, these people are awesome. I was like, I can't wait to put these videos out on YouTube and just show what kind of people they are. And then I realized, I started changing my questions a little bit too. It's like, okay, well, what's your definition of a man? Because I think so many people look up to fighters, but a lot of these guys are like tough guys, and they think they got to be tough and everything else. Is like, these fighters are some of the most humble, modest, caring, loyal, just generally good people. And so that's what's going to be awesome by putting out these videos and showing it and putting together a documentary. Is like, okay, what's your definition of a father? What does it mean to be a good father? And I want to change some definitions, not only of what a fighter is, but what's the definition of a man, and what's the definition of a father, and all those kinds of things. So, so that's going to be the basis of the documentary.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So is it just males that you interview? Because
No.
I met Gina Carano, and she was probably the coolest chick I've ever met.
Yeah, no.
I went snowboarding with her, actually.
really?
And
Nice.
on a whim, like, I was at Mount Charleston, she was there. She was like, you want to snowboard? I was like, yeah.
See,
That's awesome.
I haven't talked with as many females. I think it's been about 15%, just because there
There's
just
not that
aren't that
many.
many, especially on the East Coast.
Oh,
Out
yeah.
here, I was just at Syndicate MMA, and I talked with some really cool females. And one was she studied physics and astrophysics in college, and she decided to do this. Another one, she's a professional photographer, and everyone has like, these aren't dumb people that are doing it. I think a lot of people have that impression, like, oh, they're just brutes.
They're
And
stupid,
and the perception's changing a little bit, but it's like, if I could do anything to kind of speed that along. But yeah, talking to females is, that's something that I always try to grab whoever's in the gym.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's like, I really, especially with my daughter, it's like, what, do I want her to do it? And, just try and understand it. 'Cause it's a lot harder to understand how a female would do it. It's like risking, it's like, you really want to do that?
I took kickboxing, and I'd quit after a week.
Mm-hmm.
So
And that's one thing I'm curious. You mentioned people may have this idea of who these fighters are. Because we have a shout out to Ryan Smith back in Illinois, a friend of ours. He watching him training in the professional fighting circuit is just the amount of dedication.
Mm-hmm.
Like the time like, you think people just show up to a fight and like the amount of preparation that goes for them just to make that weight and just to get in the zone for that fight, it's incredible, like how dedicated and how much work goes into it.
Yeah,
gosh,
I have so much respect for anyone that gets in there and just the courage it takes to step into the ring. There was one person who kind of described, he's like, okay, he's all, imagine going into just a crowded room, crowded auditorium, and just standing in the middle of it, with all your clothes on, and people are just looking at you. Like,
Right.
that's one thing. Now imagine a spotlight on you. Now imagine stripping down to just your shorts. Now imagine another man right across from you that wants to kill you, and knock you out.
He has the
It's-
mentality,
Yeah, and
yeah.
then all your friends are watching, and so it's
Your kids
Yeah.
are there, family.
Yeah.
I know I've seen various UFC fights where I'm just like, oh, that woman must be feeling it because
Yeah.
their wives are there, their kids are there. It is their profession.
Mm-hmm.
They are getting paid. That's how they're making a living. But at the same time, when the kids see it, they're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't want you to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And another thing I learned about was interesting. And blood happens and bruises and all that, but it is relatively safe. Like, because the people are trained on both sides. It's an art.
Right.
So that's another maybe misconception someone may have.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I always ask, especially because I tried boxing too. That was the first reason I moved to Vegas. I lived here for about 4 years.
Oh, wow.
But
Oh, okay.
I was into cage fighting in California. Then I got suckered into coming out here to try to box.
Mm-hmm.
Big white guy. But while I was boxing, I was mixing up my words a lot. I was really having a lot of brain issues, and because you're just constantly getting hit in the head over and over and over, like every day sparring. So I do think MMA is much safer, not taking that kind of
Oh, yeah.
damage.
Very nice. And aside from MMA, you have written other books.
Yeah.
Could
My passion is fiction. I hate to say I'm a science fiction writer,
That's awesome.
but that's I guess that's what it is. My first book, Brightside, it's a sci-fi thriller where telepaths were rounded up by the government and imprisoned in a little mountain town, and just how awful that would be if you knew the thoughts of those around you. Like, imagine
can't do
if your
anything.
boyfriend or girlfriend knew every thought that you had,
Right.
and if you could hear their thoughts, and then. I was like, what would that be like to be in a little town like that? So that was the first novel, and then I just came out with 25 Perfect Days, which I'm really excited because people are comparing it to Orwell's 1984,
Oh, wow.
and so it's I wrote it as a cautionary tale where if you give up power, whether it's to the church or the state, you're not going to get that power back, and so this kind of shows like a 40-year period of what could happen if we go down that path.
Awesome.
Very nice. Very
Yeah,
nice.
I'm very excited to read your books. I'm
cool.
I'm a big reader,
Oh,
and
awesome.
I love sci-fi and I love fiction. So
Very cool.
that's kind of like hand in hand. And just I love the religious aspect of it. Like I'm spiritual.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love reading about it and people's takes on it. Everyone has a different interpretation of religion
Mm-hmm.
and just the conformity of it. So I'm very excited to read your
Very
books.
cool.
Oh yeah.
And for anyone that does want to check out Brightside for free, I have it on my website. Just have to put in the code UNLOCK. I think it's all capital letters. But if you go to marktullius.com,
Okay,
go
perfect.
to classified documents, type in UNLOCK, and you get the free ebook in all different formats.
Oh,
Awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, that will be happening.
Cool.
And we are a social media show, so
Yes,
we're
we are.
curious, how are you using social media? As an author and filmmaker, how do you use social media to promote what you do, or how big of a
That-
role does it play?
That was something I was really afraid of. I never even got on Facebook. Like, I was so against it. And when I did first go on it, like just a personal page, I would very rarely comment. I was like, oh, I don't want to start an author page. But once I did, I love it. I'm on it all the time now, and I've made so many connections, and it's awesome, and what I'm seeing is it's great being able to get the feedback from fans, but just spreading the positivity. Like I'm big on that, and I've met so many positive people, and that's what they respond to. And I share a lot of stuff with about my family and just my daily life, and not so much. The writing's not as important to me on that. I mean, if people like who I am, I think they'll probably check out the writing, and they'll take off. But it's awesome to have I'm able to put out the videos on there. We just did a trailer for Brightside. So we put that out on Facebook and Twitter, and it's on our YouTube channel. So that helps a lot. And having all the fighter interviews, I have that on my YouTube channel, and every once in a while I'll put them up on Facebook and Twitter. And so that definitely helps get that out there and get some exposure for the guys, and especially the up and coming guys that aren't used to telling their stories. I just had someone this morning. I was starting to read it. In the other room, but he just posted. He's like, you were the first person to interview me, and that made such a difference. He's saying, it was a little tough for him, and he had actually like cried a little bit during the interview, and I cut that part out.
Right.
But it was awesome. It's like that's what I want. I want people, make you think, and but yeah, he was just grateful for it, and he just shared his story on my page today. So that was kind of cool.
Absolutely.
That is cool.
Yeah.
And I know we all three here do interviews, and I know Asia's mentioned before too. Just people are interesting.
Mm-hmm.
People have a story to tell, and it doesn't matter if they're huge CEO that's globally famous, or a person in Vegas living on the street. They could have maybe a more interesting story than
than the CEO.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's entirely true, and I put that up a lot on Facebook. It's like, it's like I'm inspired by these people, but like you can go ask someone else, like ask your neighbor, like what's up with them. I guarantee you don't know them like that probably, unless you spend a lot of time with them. Like you probably never taken the
You
time
don't
to
know
like
anything about
most
them.
people. They ask a question and they're just waiting to talk.
Right.
It's like, okay, what can I say next?
And I know. Go for it.
No, it's amazing what people even surprise themselves, in interviews when they sit down and you ask them questions. Wow, I didn't even think I was going to say that, but
Right.
it just came out.
Yeah. And that's one of, like when I interview someone that's a bigger name guy. I did Dominic Cruz, who's one of the champs.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this guy's already told his story so many times. But I think if you just, if you ask the right questions and you have a good vibe with the person, like, you'll be surprised what might come out. And
Exactly.
it's always cool. I think as long as you're keeping everything positive, and that's what I'm doing. Is like, I know I didn't want to be put in that label as a journalist. I was like, I'm not a journalist. I'm not some asshole that's gonna, that's trying to get some big story or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was like, I just want to know who you are, and just like kind of show, spread some good stuff.
That's kind of the route I went when I went to school, high school.
Mm-hmm.
I like journalism, but I didn't want to be a journalist.
Yeah.
Like
like a
I'd
dirty
rather,
work.
Yeah, it is the dirty work. And I'd much rather just get the actual story on a human basis, not, hey, I'm trying to get something out of you.
Yeah.
More so like we're two people talking and it just so happens to be recorded. So.
Yeah.
And I think social media has opened the portal to break the mold of
yeah.
traditional journalism, and
Right.
for people like yourself to branch out and be like, this is my platform, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I'm going to do it. So it gives you that freedom.
And I think that's so important too, especially because like I'm really big about mainstream media just being terrible. There's one story that they have to put out this, and by having social media and alternative journalism, it's like that's how get your opinion out there. Let other people know what's up and your take on it. Don't be scared of
that, and it's not just about death. So,
Yeah.
I'm tired of seeing that on my newsfeed.
Yeah.
Bring something else.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much
Yes.
for coming through. I know you listed some early, but where all can people find you? Where can they see all your work? Where do people
Where they
need to
can
go?
buy your book.
Everywhere.
Right now, I think my book, Brightside, is everywhere as far as ebooks. 25 Perfect Days is on Amazon, and it will be out shortly on iTunes and all those other ones. But on my website, marktullius.com, you can get both books in all formats, and you get the print book of Brightside. And then Facebook is author Mark Tullius, and my Twitter, Mark Tullius1, and YouTube, I think, is just Mark Tullius. But yeah, if you go to my website, I think everything's there. I just revamped it, trying to make it start up a fan forum and everything else, and doing it right.
Cool.
Okay.
But thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank
This
you
is
for
awesome.
coming.
Thank you. It was a treat. We're looking forward to unlocking the cage and the documentary. And
There's your copy of 25
oh,
Perfect Days.
thank you so much. 25 Perfect Days right there. All right, Mark Tullius, and just keep us updated. We want to keep people updated on everything you're doing. This is awesome. Thank
All right.
you so
All right.
much.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks,
Appreciate
Mark.
it.